And joining me now on this India Today special broadcast is Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former top diplomat. Sandeep Unithan, my colleague, remains with me on the show. In a moment, we'll be joined by Professor Andrew Latham, an expert on international relations. Ambassador Sajjanhar, your understanding of Donald Trump reiterating that he's not getting enough credit for stopping the war, and he still insists he stopped the war. You heard what Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said. US had absolutely no role to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Gaurav. I think we have heard Donald Trump not once, not twice, but several times over. And we made our point of view clear. I think we really need to move forward. Let Donald Trump say what he wants to say. I think the relationship is much broader than this. We have made our point. I think the world knows it. That is why, nothing has been written on this. If the world trusted what Donald Trump was saying, there would have been sheaves and reams of paper and ink that would have been spent on this. The world doesn't trust him. The world believes what happened on the ground, that it is Pakistan which came on bent knees to India, asking for a ceasefire, asking for a cessation of hostilities, and we accepted, we agreed to that. So I think there are so many other areas of cooperation and collaboration with the United States. We don't need to expend our energy focus on this thing. We need to move forward, whether it is, I think the Prime Minister and Mr. Trump spoke about...
Unless, of course, Sandeep, yes. Sir, give me a moment. Sandeep, it just appears Donald Trump is desperate for a success story. He hasn't had one. Not Russia, Ukraine, that he had boasted about, that even before he enters White House, there would be a ceasefire. Russia continues to pound Ukraine. Israel-Iran conflict has started. Now a man who claims to be a deal maker and a peacemaker is actually sending in fighter jets into the region and aircraft carrier battle groups. It just appears he's desperate for one success story, and he's claiming success where he has had no role to play.
Well, absolutely, Gaurav. In fact, as you correctly pointed out, Donald Trump is a man who promised to end conflicts even before he entered the White House. It's been 6 months now, Gaurav, and there's, in fact, the number of conflicts have increased. Iran and Israel are at war. That's the newest conflict that's raging on for almost a week now. Donald Trump has been unable to stop anything, and no one seems to be listening to him. Therefore, he's coming out with this, as what Ambassador Sajjanhar said. He's been repeating it ad nauseum. And Donald Trump, as we know, Gaurav, is a man who never allows facts to come in the way of an interesting story. Now, that interesting story of his has been called out in no uncertain terms by the Foreign Secretary Misri today, in some of the strongest language that we've seen India use for its relationship with the United States. And I think India has said that enough is enough, and he keeps on going on with this thing of having mediated and used trade and all of those things. And I think, something has snapped there in that statement that, India should, and arguably that statement should have come out a long time ago, Gaurav, but I think the timing was right. It was today. They preempted the luncheon meeting between General Field Marshal Munir and President Trump. So this was India taking preemptive diplomatic action with that statement, Gaurav.
And a very strong statement that came in from Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. But, when you mentioned that preemptive strike, it was also a trap that was being laid for India. Ambassador Sajjanhar, the manner in which Donald Trump said that, he made that phone call, sought a conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and said, why don't you come to Washington, D.C.? And then with Asim Munir in White House, he would have tried to get the two leaders together, and then he would have claimed another victory, and Pakistan would have gone home claiming victory, because Pakistan says they had a ceasefire because America promised them a dialogue with India. India clearly did not fall into the American trap.
No, absolutely. I think if Prime Minister Modi had been in Washington, D.C. and Asim Munir was also there, this would have, been shown as some sort of an equivalence between the two countries. And that is something that we are loath about, the manner in which Donald Trump has spoken about two great leaders, two great countries, two making great products, etc. So this is jarring, because obviously one is a perpetrator of terrorism, one is a victim. And there is no comparison between these two countries. India is GDP is 13 times as much as Pakistan. Only the state of Tamil Nadu's, that GDP is more than that of Pakistan. State of Maharashtra's GDP is more than that of Pakistan. So there is no comparison between the two, and I'm very happy that Prime Minister Modi looked through this ruse and he sort of, declined there. But, again, I think we need to focus, we need to take note of the fact, the reasons why Donald Trump has invited Asim Munir and the preventive actions that we will need to take, Gaurav. That's very important because, this is going to embolden Munir and all these other things. He's got extra medals, he's become a field marshal and all that sort of things, and he feels that the country is behind him and the United States is standing with him. China, of course, is with him, so he might feel more emboldened that he can continue with these antics of his, these tactics of his, what he did, and he will be able to sort of get away with it. I think India needs to disabuse him of any of that thinking, any of that understanding, and we'll have to really think deep. Meaning, of course, one can say that it is between Pakistan and the United States because exactly, I think you mentioned, Sandeep mentioned that there is the cryptocurrency deal between the two of them. There is the rare earth minerals deals with them. There's also the possibility of getting bases there in Pakistan for these operations against Iran that is hotting up. So all those considerations are there, but Donald Trump might have his own reasons, but all of it has an impact on India. And India needs to be very conscious and mindful of that and
the
take
big thing
preventive
is,
steps. Yes, Gaurav.
Oh, absolutely. The good thing is that Indian political, diplomatic, and political leadership, they've learned so much from past mistakes, Sandeep. Because Sandeep and I and Ambassador Sajjanhar, we watched in horror, absolute horror, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee recognized Pervez Musharraf, a military dictator, as president, gave him Tri-Services Guard of Honor, let him come to Agra for that summit, which was a disaster. And why? Because American interests in Afghanistan had to be protected, is the narrative that was given to us at that point of time. And Pervez Musharraf, who promised that his territory will never be used for terror against India, it targeted our parliament, it targeted our temples, including Akshardham temple and Raghunath temple, targeted, so many other places in our country. Terror continued again with Dr. Manmohan Singh, 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, and that disaster at Sharm el-Sheikh. Again, we were told there was global pressure for dialogue with Pakistan. I'm so glad in 2025, Sandeep, India is strong enough to say, नहीं बात करनी एक आतंकवादी देश के साथ. He has to stop terror first.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And I keep saying that we still haven't understood the implications of Operation Sindoor and the Prime Minister's message on the 12th of May. Where he called out Pakistan's state sponsorship of terror, Gaurav, and the fact that he said there would be no distinction between the state and the non-state. Nuclear blackmail would have to end, and any attack against India would be met with force, by military force, would be considered a war on India. These are very, very big red lines that the Prime Minister has drawn, which is why I say that Operation Sindoor and the Prime Minister's three statements, the new doctrine of India's war on terror, is possibly our biggest strategic statements after Pokhran of 1998. We have called out Pakistan's state sponsorship of terror. Everything that the Pakistan military has carefully constructed, this facade of the state and the non-state actors and nuclear blackmail, all of that collapsed on the 10th of May, Gaurav. You're looking at a new India, very assertive, which is not afraid to call out the bully in the room, even if it's the American president, which is what the Prime Minister seems to have done with that phone call today, Gaurav.
Oh, absolutely, because this is perhaps a situation, Ambassador Sajjanhar, the Prime Minister is telling the world about India's power. Realize India's power and treat India. And it's not that we expect the world treats us because of the way we are, and we've proven our mettle in the world. Operation Sindoor, or before that, post Galwan, our operations have indicated our military strength, our economic strength, our political strength, and as a nation, the way we come. Is that the appreciation? Because when I spoke to several people here, they see India in completely different light in today's day and age, Ambassador Sajanhar. But what do you make of this new love for Pakistan? You know, Donald Trump in 2019 was calling Pakistan the biggest cheat. They've cheated America out of $33 billion and they've killed American people and all of that. And suddenly he says, I love Pakistan. Or does he love money more than he loves peace?
No, absolutely. I think you're right. He is more driven by personal interest, personal financial interest, and even as far as, if one wants to be a little charitable to him, say, even as far as the US national interests are concerned because of the position that he's taking on Iran. So, this has all moved together. But you're very right. 2017, Gaurav, you look at the national security strategy, national defense strategy. It is very categorically stated. We don't really need to go even that far, or to the tweet of 1st January 2018 that you are referring to, that, we've given $33 billion and they have treated all the US leaders like fools, and that is not going to continue. And, they are providing safe havens to all these terrorists. So, that has been very clear. But even he changed, of course, the tune when Imran Khan came there, said he will negotiate, he'll mediate on Kashmir, and he again told a falsehood that Prime Minister Modi has requested him to mediate on Kashmir. You recall that in the Oval Office, that's what he comment that he made. Basically,
Yes.
because he wanted to reach out to the Taliban at that time, and he wanted to get out of Afghanistan. So it might be personal interest, but come now to 13th of February, you look at the joint declaration that was signed when Prime Minister Modi was there. The name of Jaish, the name of Lashkar, the name of Hizbul Mujahideen, all this is mentioned that Pakistan needs to take action against 2611 suspects. All these developments about critical minerals, about cryptocurrency, etc., they, I think, have happened after that, as we have read reports on that. And that is what has motivated him to change all that. That having been said, it doesn't change our own plans, because as Sandeep was saying, and I very much agree, and what you have mentioned also, Gaurav, India has demonstrated not only its capacity, but also its intention to punish Pakistan if there is a repetition of such, such an action. And I think India has also demonstrated that it is not going to look at the world either for approval or permission, or, look over its shoulder to see what the other countries are thinking. India knows what it needs to do. India will do it to protect its own sovereignty, to protect its own interest, irrespective of what. And the world takes note of that. You would recall that when Operation Sindoor started on the 7th morning, there was one country only which expressed regret, that is China. No other country said anything that India should not have done it, India needs to sort of, withdraw this, that, and the other. No country made a remark. They acknowledged that India has the right to protect its interests,
Okay.
and India will go forward and do what it thinks is best for its interests.
And Sandeep, right now, as America looks to, as many argue, join this war against Iran, the assets that are being moved into West Asia, whether it's 3 aircraft carrier battle groups or the B-2 bombers with their GBU-57 hardware, or the 3 dozen tankers, mid-air refuelers with the F-15s, F-16s and F-35s moving to West Asia. How does Pakistan or Pakistani airspace and air bases fit into the wider American war game? Is it just ISR, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, or is there a bigger role, Sandeep?
Well, Gaurav, it's possible that Pakistan could allow the use of its airspace for, American aircraft to fly through and attack, Iran. And this has happened in the past. Both of us have covered the war in Afghanistan, where you saw, F-18 aircraft from carrier strike groups in the Arabian Sea taking off and bombing Afghanistan over Pakistani airspace. You saw B-52s and B-2s taking off from Diego Garcia and attacking Afghanistan again. Now, this is a similar thing. If the United States gets involved in Iran, Gaurav, then it's quite possible that Pakistan will have to either give its air bases to the United States, as it has done in the past during the global war on terror, or allow for its its airspace to be used as transit, or cut the border escape of Iranian government officials or troops or anything of that sort. All of these contingencies would definitely have been mapped by CENTCOM, Gaurav, and that explains the kind of ask that Donald Trump has possibly of General Field Marshal Asim Munir. And Pakistan's geolocation, geographical location, Gaurav, is something that the generals at Rawalpindi have always used, right from Field Marshal Ayub in 1958, when he allowed the U-2 flights to take off from Peshawar to fly over China and USSR, right down to present day Field Marshal Asim Munir, another Field Marshal. Pakistan is a rentier state, and it has always charged a premium rent for its geopolitical, for its geographic location. And that seems to be the case here. And it'll be very interesting to know what President Trump asks of Munir in the White House. Is definitely going to be something that's related to the emerging situation with the Iran-Israel war, Gaurav.
Will he ask or will he dictate? Sandeep, is the big question, because usually people don't ask their servants, they tell their servants what needs to be done. And Asim Munir is a little more than an American vassal, who used to be a Chinese vassal or remains a Chinese vassal too. But I want to understand from you, Ambassador Sajanhar, America is a strategic partner. But when a strategic partner speaks in its interests and not in our interests too, then somewhere down the line, is this relationship more transactional, or is there a difference between what the president says and what the State Department says and what the US, Pacific Command does on ground? Are they all on the same page, or are they now running with the hare and hunting with hounds?
As far as the differentiation that you seek to make between the State Department and the President, I don't think today there is any, because none of these, cabinet members of the Trump cabinet, they have any independent standing, they have any independent clout. They are there because Trump has positioned them there.
We are getting the first visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi landing in Zagreb, the first visit ever of an Indian Prime Minister to Croatia, a very, very significant visit. This is a very significant visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Croatia. This is the first time ever since Croatia became an independent country in 1991 that an Indian Prime Minister has visited. And do keep in mind, Zoran Milanovic, the Prime Minister of Croatia, is seen as a very close ally of India. Croatia has always stood by India on various issues, including on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. When you talk about the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, Croatia again on the Adriatic Sea will be playing a very significant role, whether it's geostrategic ties, whether it's defense ties, whether it's India gaining an important foothold in the Balkans. All of this is very, very significant, and the Prime Minister made it a point that when he was going to Cyprus and then to Canada, on the way back to stop by at Croatia and take this relationship to another level. More important than going to Washington, D.C. and meeting President Donald Trump at a time when Asim Munir was also at the White House. That's a discussion for another time. But Ambassador Sajjanar and Sandeep, many thanks for joining me.